Welcome to the New Talent Playbook Podcast, your go-to resource for building exceptional teams and thriving businesses. Each episode delivers actionable insights on harnessing offshore talent, integrating innovative technology, cultivating a vibrant company culture, and attracting and retaining top performers. Subscribe now to never miss an episode. For more resources, visit thenewtalentplaybookpodcast.com, where you can download this episode's free workbook designed to help you apply today's insight to your business. And now, here's your host, Rob Levin.
Today, I'm joined by Jonathan B. Smith, expert EOS implementer and negotiation strategist with the Black Swan Group. Jonathan is a leading business strategist who has used the entrepreneurial operating system with more than 150 high-growth entrepreneurial companies in 1,500 plus sessions to help them improve strategy, execution, and results. He's also a negotiation trainer with the Black Swan Group, created by former FBI hostage negotiator Chris Voss, author of Never Split the Difference, and has served as a delegate with the U.S. Department's State of Global Entrepreneurship Program to Jakarta and Athens. Jonathan is also the co-author of Fight Less, Win More, a book coming out shortly, which is the missing manual of Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference. Jonathan, great to see you and welcome to the show. Let's dive right in.
All right, terrific. Great to see you too.
Jonathan, yep, awesome seeing you, Jonathan. Jonathan, when we met, you were, I'll call you one of the OGs of the EOS Implementer group, and now you are very active with the Black Swan Group. Tell us a little bit about that transition and why you are now not only still an EOS expert implementer, but now doing this work with the Black Swan Group.
Well, Chris Voss has been my client before he wrote Never Split the Difference. So I'm actually the business architect for that business. And having spent countless hours and years with him building that business, I got fascinated with the skills, the tactical empathy skills that he teaches and espouses in Never Split the Difference. And one of the things that I found was that people are having trouble actually learning the skills. Chris tells great stories. He's an expert at what he does, but average guys like you and me just want to be able to get an upgrade at an airport, or get an upgrade at a hotel, or an extra shot of espresso at Starbucks. So with that, there's a book so the EOS book is called Traction. There's another EOS book called What the Heck is EOS? That's like the missing manual for Traction. That book sells 1-for-1 with Traction. So I decided, wouldn't it be a good strategy to go create a book that has the potential to sell 1-for-1 with Never Split the Difference and make it into the missing manual, so people who just are regular people, regular entrepreneurs, and want to get better at negotiation have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, thanks for that. I've been wanting to ask you this question for quite some time. I'm glad I got an opportunity to do it now. Jonathan, self-awareness is one of your core themes. How do you help leaders recognize when they're the bottleneck to the culture that they're trying to build?
Well, my mantra is to stay curious. So the first thing is, can we start and stay curious and be open-minded to folks around us? Because often they may have information that we don't have that would make our decisions better. And so we start with a stay curious mindset, and then from there, what we want to be able to do is listen. How hard would it be to just listen? You know, in today's world, we have 5 levels of listening. So those 5 levels go from listening for the gist, like I'm sitting on my iPhone and pretending I'm talking to you and you're talking to me. Listening to hijack, that's you're in a meeting, someone else has their hand up, as soon as you take a breath, they jump in and take the conversation somewhere completely different. Listening for logic, that's the one that we want you to stay in, and because it's the one you can best stay in. Like, there's a reason someone's asking you this question. Why don't you just sit here and listen and logically figure out why they're doing that? The 4th level is listening for logic and emotion. So there's an emotional component behind the listening. What's their emotional state of mind? And 5th is what's their point of view. point of view is what's their worldview. You don't have to agree with it, but if you can understand it and verbalize it and they feel understood, they're much more likely to want to make a deal with you, do what you ask for them to do. We say, don't piss someone off who could hurt you by doing nothing. So if they feel that you understand their point of view, they're much more likely to be cooperative.
Yeah, thanks for that. In the book, you say that fight less, win more. You say that every conversation is a negotiation. How can business owners use a term I believe you came up with, tactical empathy, to recruit and retain talent and actually and manage talent? In other words, this concept of every conversation being a negotiation. How can people use these tactics that you're talking about to really thrive with a very challenging talent market? Younger generations in the workforce working very differently than us, and yet as a business owner, you just want everybody going and you want to see the results.
So when we say every conversation is a negotiation, we say anytime I want or I need is in your head. So when I want or I need is in your head, it's a negotiation. And with that negotiation, and in that negotiation, you have to remove yourself as a threat. So what does that mean? Well, if you're the boss, Rob, and you can control if someone gets a promotion, if they get their time off, if they get a raise, they get the best project, what have you. So Fight Less, Win More teaches you these tactical empathy skills to actually remove yourself as a threat, get people open to speaking. People are 31% smarter in a positive frame of mind. Can we keep them in a positive frame of mind and, in fact, have them feel heard? Because people are dying to feel heard. And that's what this book is all about. How can you make your counterpart feel heard and understood?
It's so simple. Jonathan, where would you say is the starting point in all of this? And obviously, everybody should read the book. We'll talk about that at the end. But what's the starting point? What's the first thing people should do when they want to fight less and win more?
Well, selfishly, I'd like to say read the book, but the reality is, if you haven't read the book or haven't had an opportunity, the first thing is to have the right mindset. You have to come into a negotiation with an open mind, come into a conversation with an open mind. Be willing to listen to the other party and not listen to hijack, because so often people are listening to hijack. We say, if you're explaining too early, you're losing. So people think they're supposed to use logic to win these negotiations. And the reality is people want to feel heard and understood, and then you can move on to the logic.
So you just triggered something for me when you said people want to use logic. That is totally me. Is there a difference between men and women in terms of how they communicate and maybe what they should do to adjust? Let's say you have a woman who's a business owner and a man who's a business owner. Is there a difference in how they should be communicating in order to, as you say, fight less and win more?
Yeah, well, these skills work with humans. The female negotiators on the team have a whole course just for women in negotiations. I would say that in the book, we speak more about negotiator types than gender themselves. So the negotiator types is there's an assertive who wants to feel heard and respected. There's an analyst who wants to have quiet and time to think during the negotiation. And there's an accommodator who wants to be liked. And the world is broken up in about a third into those different negotiator types. And if you know what negotiator types on the other side, you can adjust your negotiation or your communication skills to that negotiator and put yourself in a better position to fight less and win more.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Let's go back to EOS for a second, which is when you and I first met, again, OG of EOS Implementers. And you still have that, obviously you have that, you bring that EOS framework, I'm sure, to everything you do. One of the things I think EOS does is it creates clarity. How do strong systems like EOS, how do they help reduce, let's say, emotional fires and free leaders up to focus on conversations that really move the business forward?
Yeah, one of the reasons that I loved learning tactical empathy so much and the negotiation skills, or the Black Swan skills, are that every time I'm in an EOS session with a leadership team, as a facilitator, I'm in a negotiation, and it's often high stakes. So I like to say that 70% of the success of EOS is actually team health. And by team health, we define it as organizational clarity around the accountability chart. And the second is having the difficult conversations that maybe we haven't had in some cases with family businesses for years or decades. And so one of the beauties of the system is that one of the three uniques in EOS is healthy, or creating a high performance team or a functional cohesive team. And that's what we do. We go have the difficult conversations. We enter the danger. Sometimes, Rob, you guys grimace at us and go like, "Ooh, I'm not sure I want to go there." And I say, "You're safe. You're in this room. We can disagree, but we have to commit when we walk out of this room that we're a united front." So that's what EOS is all about.
Yeah, and then do you see a crossover between that and then, the tactics that you're talking about in Fight Less, Win More? In other words, how do you as an EOS implementer, how do you bring those tactics in to really take the productivity of the leadership team and essentially the whole company to the next level?
I'm just able to have very, very sensitive conversations without blowing up the team. I always laugh. I don't want to break the team, but I do want to push them, just like we push someone at the gym, to exercise and understand that whatever they thought was holding them back is really all in their head. If they deliver the message correctly and they genuinely care about the person on the other side and the other side feels heard, 93% of the time you're going to actually be able to create a better outcome. So in the FBI, Chris learned that 93% of the time they could use these skills, 7% of the time they had to use SWAT. So, but 93% of the time it'll work. 93%
is pretty good. I'll take that any day. I mean, it only takes 33% to get into the Hall of Fame. So that's pretty compelling. Jonathan, there's a couple of trends that are going on, right now in the business world. You have AI, you have remote, including offshore work. And this is reshaping how teams operate. When you think about a lot of the teachings in Fight Less, Win More, which ones are going to matter the most over the next few years as small and mid-sized businesses are dealing with, again, things like having a remote workplace and AI really changing how we work?
I think humans still have to communicate. So as I was doing my audiobook for Fight Less, Win More, the producer was in the Philippines, and he had sat on a call center before, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, they taught me some of these skills, but if I knew all of these skills, I could have done better at my job." So the idea is, as long as humans are communicating and they want or need something, these skills are applicable. AI is a great thought partner, but AI is not going to be able to have the conversation for you. And so I think it's just critical that humans are able to communicate with each other, virtual or otherwise.
It boils down to that one simple thing. And then what we've been speaking about really so far is how the business owner and the leadership team can be using some of these tactics and really listening better. When the business owner has, I'm not going to say mastered it, but has incorporated a lot of this, and the leadership team has, how do they bring those tactics and the strategies that come with them to the rest of the workforce? Is there like a roadmap for this, or is it just lead by example?
Well, it always helps to lead by example and start, with great leadership plus great management to create accountability, LMA from EOS. But on top of that, what I like to say about tactical empathy, it's like learning a new language. So how is language best learned? Via immersion. So The book itself was written specifically so you could almost you could have a book club every week and have the team work on one of the skills each week. And at some point, the skills start to become second nature. So it would be a great tool to actually gamify inside your organization and get people using the skills. And when one person uses it, another person uses it, another person uses it, and everyone gets better.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, for selfish purposes, I'm thinking if doing that exact thing, and maybe how do we incorporate this into our L10 meetings? L10 meetings, for those of you who are not running on EOS, are weekly meetings, either at a leadership level, department level, et cetera. Have you seen companies, take some of and it's probably early on in the book, but or how would you suggest, let's say, to your EOS clients that they start to integrate this into? Is it an L10 thing? Do you do this outside of the L10?
I mean, what I see is that I start with the levels of listening, and I might incorporate a review. Think of the levels of listening as almost like an EOS tool, although it's a Black Swan tool. And then we would just review it and go, okay, I'm going to rate you on what level of listening you're at, and here's the 5 levels of listening. And when you have to accept the fact that you're going to be triggered, because you are going to be triggered along the way. And so the idea here is just to be able to be self-aware enough that if someone has their hands up and they're listening to hijack, that I have teams, once they realize it, they're like, oh, are you listening to hijack? Seems like you're listening to hijack. Seems like you have something to say. And all of a sudden, it just becomes fun. And once you start looking at how people are listening, you can look at incorporating other skills in terms of, how do you remove yourself as a threat? How do you use these skills to get on the same page? So I'd start with just levels of listening and awareness of levels of listening.
Yeah. I want to just summarize, what I've heard so far, which is just incredibly powerful. If you think about it, one of the challenges in running a business is getting everybody aligned. And look, again, as you said, people are going to get triggered. People aren't going to always agree. But walking out of the room after a meeting, say, all right, we're all on the same page. We know what our strategy is going forward. It's just so compelling. And these things that you're talking about in terms of how we communicate, starting with how we listen, are just incredibly powerful. Jonathan, is there anything that I haven't asked regarding the book and in terms of advice for business owners who really want to have more effective leadership skills themselves, as well as a more effective leadership team and better communications throughout the company?
This is just hard to understand, but you as a leader are a threat to whoever you're talking to, and you need to remove yourself as a threat. So, even if you're frustrated, even if you're angry, even if someone didn't deliver for you, how do you remove yourself as a threat so you can have a constructive conversation with your counterpart? Because if you do, you're far more likely to get the productivity you're looking for. And as I said earlier, you don't want to piss someone off who could hurt you by doing nothing, because you can't be everywhere all the time. What we need to do is have a self-managing business that manages without you. You still need to lead, but a self-managing business is just a beautiful thing.
It is. I think it's the Shangri-La that a lot of us, if not all of us, are going for. Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing all of these insights. Where can people find out more about you, as well as the book and the Black Swan Group?
Yeah, so my website is Stay Curious JBS. So it's staycuriousjbs.com. And the book is available on Amazon. It launches January 13th. It's Fight Less, Win More.
Fantastic. Jonathan, great to see you, and thanks so much for sharing these awesome insights with our audience.
All right. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for listening. The New Talent Playbook podcast is brought to you by Work Better Now. Don't forget to review, subscribe, and download the workbook for this episode at the link below. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on LinkedIn at the New Talent Playbook Podcast or visit thenewtalentplaybookpodcast.com.